My girlfriend's excessive jealousy ruined our Vegas trip, and I'm fed up with it. Hey, just a quick heads up before this video kicks off, you're going to hear two different tales in here, and both of them have some fresh updates to share. Alright, let's dive into the first one. My girlfriend, Laura, has this crazy jealousy thing going on, and it totally wrecked our trip to Las Vegas. I'm fed up with it, to be honest. About 3 weeks back, I headed out to Vegas with Laura, her close buddy Sarah, and Sarah's boyfriend for a little vacation. We're all in college, just wrapped up our final exams, and we've been hashing out plans for this getaway for something like 6 months. Trouble started brewing before we even made it to the city. When we got on the plane, it was packed tight. Sarah and her boyfriend snagged the last pair of seats side by side, but me and Laura? We had to split up. Nobody was willing to trade spots or give up their seat. I told Laura she could pick between the last two options, sitting next to a little girl and her mom or next to a couple of volleyball players, probably high school or college age. I ended up by the window, parked next to this super talkative 5-year-old and her mom, who looked maybe late 20s or early 30s. I kept the kid busy for about 3 hours on that 5 or 6 hour flight until she finally nodded off. I've got an older sister with a kid around that age, so I'm no stranger to keeping little ones occupied. After the girl crashed out, her mom started chatting me up a bit, just easy stuff, like how I seemed so good with kids, nothing pushy or weird. But when we landed and stepped off the plane, Laura was already steaming mad. She told me I didn't even seem upset that we couldn't sit together, like I was happy to ditch her or something. Look, the flight was rough, and sure, I'd have rather been next to Laura or catching some shut-eye, but I wasn't about to sulk and make a bad day worse. It was a 6 a.m. takeoff. Who's dying to play babysitter for 3 hours at that hour? After a while, Sarah calmed her down, and Laura said she was sorry. So, we roll up to our hotel right on the Las Vegas Strip and get checked in. Turns out, they'd set us up with just one big penthouse room, some deal Sarah's folks hooked us up with, for all 4 of us. It wasn't the worst setup, but I'd only hung out with Sarah and her boyfriend a few times before this whole trip. Later on, I found out from Sarah that Laura had practically pleaded with her to book it this way, even though Sarah had wanted us to have separate connecting rooms at first. That first day, we hit the Strip for a walk, and man, there were good-looking girls everywhere. You can't avoid it in Vegas. I don't know what Laura thought it'd be like, but about 15 minutes in, I catch her eyeballing me instead of checking out the scenery like the rest of us. She wasn't just glancing over to get my attention, she was studying where my eyes were going, like she was on some mission to catch me staring at somebody. I told her she was missing out on the cool stuff around us and that she didn't need to worry about a thing. Then we swung by this massive outlet mall, and every time a store worker handed me a coupon or tried to talk me up, Laura nearly lost it. I asked one of the girls there about something Laura wanted to buy, and even then, Laura marched over and jumped into the conversation, real clumsy and rude, too. It was hands down the most humiliating thing I've ever seen. I felt awful for the worker and made sure to apologize before we took off. Later, we hopped on a bus to catch some night shows. Sarah's boyfriend and I let the girls grab the last 2 seats while we stood up, holding onto those metal bars. There was this couple right in front of us, totally plastered, drunk out of their minds. They weren't even grabbing the rails or anything. Sure enough, when the bus lurched forward, they toppled backward, and we caught them. Laura told me later we shouldn't have bothered helping since we didn't know them, like we should have just let them hit the floor instead of touching them. By the 3rd day, Laura wasn't feeling good, so we didn't leave the hotel at all. I stuck around with her all day, not a huge deal, but she wouldn't even let me step out to grab food. She insisted on room service. She seemed fine just chilling in the room, watching movies. The day before we headed home, we ate at this spot that was part nightclub, part restaurant. Our waitress was one of those Vegas showgirls, or maybe a call girl, I'm not sure what you call it, and she was laying the charm on thick. Once she saw Laura getting worked up, she dialed it up even more. I tried to brush it off, but it was too late, the whole vibe was shot. I get it, nobody wants some stranger flirting with their partner, but I'm pretty sure that's just her gig, trying to get folks to take her business card. Sarah's boyfriend got even more attention from her, and Sarah just cracked up, even traded a few laughs with the girl. By the time we were done, I was ready to call it quits with Laura as soon as we got back. But on the flight home, she's all smiles, going on about how much fun she had in Vegas. Once we were alone at home, I brought it up, and she said sorry, claiming she wasn't herself out there. I pressed her a little, and she opened up about some rotten ex who cheated on her twice, treated her like garbage, and tried controlling her every move. It felt like she was piling on the guilt to keep me from walking away, and I'll admit, it was kind of working. Still, I couldn't shake how that trip went down. She pinned most of it on that old relationship and some mood swings, though at first she acted like she hadn't done anything out of line. I'm no saint myself, I tend to bail on relationships fast, and sometimes I wonder if I'm jumping the gun too quick, or if this time it's actually okay to walk away. I'm not chasing perfection, nobody's flawless, and I've learned that over time. But fixing somebody else? That's never been my thing. My older sister says that's my biggest problem. She tells me I'm always hunting for the full deal and bolt the second I spot a couple cracks. I usually take her advice to heart, but this time, I'm not so sure she's right. Laura's never pulled stuff like this before, but then again, this was our first big trip together. Most of the time, we just hang out with her pals or stick to ourselves around campus. It's been 3 weeks since Vegas, and she's back to acting normal, but we've got 2 more trips lined up, one with Sarah, her boyfriend, and Laura's family, and another with a big crew this summer, about a month from now. I can't deal with another Vegas mess. Am I moving too fast to ditch this? Should I hang in there and try to sort it out with her? I'd love some outside thoughts. How does this kind of thing usually go? Here's more. I sat her down and laid it all out, straight and tough as I could. I didn't let her brush Vegas under the rug, even though she tried to act like it never happened. She said she'd do her best to turn things around, but she wasn't sure she could or if this was just who she is. She admitted she messed up, and Sarah even told her she was way out of line, but Laura still seemed like she couldn't care less about actually changing. Trust issues are hard, I know that, but she's got zero drive to work on it. I told her flat out that I need to see something different, or I'm rethinking this whole deal. She just sat there, staring at me blank-faced, like she was daring me to go. I couldn't tell if she was trying to make me feel bad for her, if she thinks I won't really leave, or if she's just too stubborn to see she'll lose everybody if she keeps this up. Dumping her right now, after 2 years together, especially since this is the first time she's acted this way, feels a little hasty if everything else is solid. I don't want to downplay what we've got, but to me, chilling in each other's dorms or kicking it around campus is one thing. Getting out in the real world together? That's a whole different ballgame. Looking back over these 2 years, it hits me that she's always had some excuse to keep us cooped up like that. I'm a guy who likes to move, play sports for the college team and all, and beyond that, she's never been up for doing much. Even this trip, she was so on the fence about it, we almost didn't go. She threw out every reason she could think of to just stay home and waste another summer doing nothing. Maybe I've been too dense or blind to catch the little hints that this is how it's always been with us. Here's the latest. After I wrote all this down, I went straight to Sarah, Laura's best friend, and asked her point blank about Laura's deal. I wanted the scoop, anything Laura might not tell me herself, maybe stuff from her past relationships or some old baggage she's keeping quiet out of shame or hurt, anything that'd explain why she acted so wild in Vegas. I told Sarah I was this close to breaking it off because Laura's behavior out there turned me off so bad I couldn't stand it. Sarah swore up and down there was nothing to tell, but I wasn't buying it. She seemed like she was holding something back. Still, she's tight with Laura, so she asked me to give her one more shot. She even threw together a last-second beach trip for the weekend with about 8 of us. Laura wasn't keen on going, no surprise there, and I didn't bother pushing her. Sarah and a few other girls talked her into it, saying it'd be a blast with the whole group. Big shock, it went about as bad as I figured it would. She kept nagging me to keep my shirt on the whole time, even though everybody else, her included, was down to their swimsuits. Once I peeled it off, she'd check in every hour, asking if I was ready to cover up so I wouldn't burn. Strolling the boardwalk, she'd watch me like a hawk every time a bunch of girls passed by. If I glanced their way, she'd chew me out or lay on the guilt. If I didn't, she'd get all jealous anyway, saying they were checking me out. It was flat out mortifying, and anybody could see it. So, we're out there on the beach, and this volleyball comes bouncing over and lands right by our towel. Some girl jogs up to grab it, and I pick it up and hand it to her. She says, "Thanks," real quick, then gives me this little glance as she heads back to her buddies. That ball ended up near us 2 or 3 more times, and Laura got it in her head that this whole group, about 10 of them, was tossing it our way on purpose. She figured they kept sending that same girl over just to sneak a peek at me. I'll be straight with you, I was already leaning toward calling it quits with Laura over all the nonsense before that, but what happened next was the final straw. I'm off swimming, pretty far from shore, close to where those buoy markers are, and I spot these 2 kids, a boy and a girl, maybe 12 or 13, struggling in the water. Looked like they'd gone out too deep and were wore out. They weren't strong swimmers, and I could see them drifting farther off. So, I paddle over and ask if they need a hand getting back in. I end up towing them both closer to shore till they can stand on the bottom. They're real thankful, and I hear the girl mention their folks had warned them not to go that far out. Back on the beach, Laura hits me with, "What were you doing with those kids?" I tell her I was helping them get back safe, and she snaps, "Ain't that the lifeguard's job?" The 2 couples nearby looked like they couldn't believe she said that, and all I could do was shake my head. That night, I'd had enough. I told Laura we were done and said I hoped she'd figure out how to feel better about herself, maybe get some help. She went all dramatic, tears pouring, sobbing hard, begging me to stay, saying she'd turn things around if I didn't go. She even tried telling me she needed me to fix her, and if I left, it'd be my fault she's like this. I was getting mad and didn't want to say something I'd regret, so I started heading out. That's when she yells she's pregnant. I just looked at her, rolled my eyes, and kept walking. I know for a fact we haven't slept together since her last period, I made sure of that, so I reckon she caught herself in that lie quick. As I'm leaving, she runs out of the room and hollers down the hall, "Please don't go." I swung by Sarah's room to let her and her boyfriend know I was taking off. I drove myself for a reason, you know? Sarah said she was sorry and finally fessed up that Laura's story about some awful ex wasn't true. Turns out, her old boyfriend just grabbed coffee with a work buddy, a gal he'd known since they were kids, like 15 years, and Laura flipped out, saying he was cheating on her in his heart or some junk. Man, I reckon I dodged a big one there. I wiped both their numbers from my phone, and I ain't planning to talk to either of them ever again. Alright, moving on to the next deal. Here's story number 2, my girlfriend won't let her family know I exist, says it's to keep her daughter safe. I'll keep this as short as I can. I need your take on it cause I might be too wrapped up in love to see straight. I've been with this woman who's got a 13-year-old girl. We hooked up online and been steady for about 6 months now. She's in a town about an hour and a half away, and we usually get together once a week. She'll crash at my place most times. She's been split from her husband for a year, though it ain't legal yet, and her ex is from her same town. I'm head over heels for her, honest to God. I don't think I've ever fallen for anybody this hard. I'm usually a level-headed guy, but she's got me all twisted up, so I'd appreciate some outside advice. Here's the rub, she won't tell her daughter about me yet, and I get why. We're still getting to know each other, and she's gotta look out for her kid. She doesn't know if the girl'll get upset finding out her mom's got a guy, or if she'd take it hard if we ever split up down the road. That's fair enough by me, but it's stirring up some trouble in this relationship that's starting to feel like too much. Here's the rundown, I can't even set foot in her town cause it's small, everybody knows everybody, and if somebody spotted us together, word might get back to her daughter. She says that'd bust the trust they've got, since the kid wouldn't hear it from her first. Her pals and even her own mom don't know I'm in the picture. She tells me that's just how she is, keeps her private life locked up tight, and if she told them, her daughter might catch wind of it anyhow. She's got some trust hang-ups from old relationships, so she ain't fully sold on me yet. But here's the kicker, she let her ex know she's seeing somebody. That don't add up with all the rest, and it's got me scratching my head. One time, I called her out, said it feels like I'm some side piece. She swears she's real fond of me but ain't ready to parade me in front of her family and friends. I was pretty sure I wasn't just a fling when we bumped into her ex at a rock concert. She told me we shouldn't kiss there cause it might rile him up and start a fight, but by the end of the night, she's the one kissing me, and he saw it plain as day. I've told her I love her, and I meant it. She said it back once, but she was hammered drunk, and she ain't said it since. When I asked her about it, she said she only wants to say it when it feels real, not forced. So, what do you reckon, is she still shielding her daughter, or has she figured out we ain't got a long haul ahead? I don't mind a casual thing, shoot, that's what I was doing last year, and I was fine with it, but I'm in deep with this one. If it's going nowhere, I want out quick. I laid that out for her 2 months back, and we nearly called it off. She begged for another shot, said she'd switch things up cause she really likes me, but 2 months later, nothing's different. Am I making a mountain out of a molehill? Is she just leaning on me to blow off steam? Or maybe she's playing me to mess with her ex? It's driving me nuts. Thanks for hearing me out. Here's some extra. We kicked things off as friends with benefits for about a month till my birthday came around. That's when she said she was falling for me. I was catching feelings too, so we decided to make it official. The hush-hush stuff didn't bug me when we were just messing around, but I figured dating would change that. I told her one day it felt like I was her secret lover, not her man, and she said what I was asking for made sense, she'd try to fix it. That was 2 months ago, and I ain't seeing much progress. On the divorce front, she says she's too swamped to deal with it now, but it ain't about religion or her family being strict. From what she's told me, they'd be cool with her dating before the papers are signed since they're already apart. But she hasn't even started the legal split, and that's a warning sign for sure. I've been itching to visit her town, but she keeps putting me off. I'll give it a couple more months, tops, her birthday's coming up, and how she handles that, like if she invites me anywhere, will tell me plenty. I know I ain't a total secret cause her ex saw us locking lips at that show. Maybe they've got some open deal going, but he knows about me, nobody else does. I'm sure it was him. I checked him out on Facebook when we started up, not my finest hour, but I don't know her that well, and she don't talk much. I owned up to snooping later, and she didn't seem to mind. They were together forever, 16 years, I think. She says she's the one who wanted out cause he was a controlling jerk, wouldn't let her see friends, got jealous if any guy spoke to her, the works. Word from their mutual buddies is he's taking the breakup bad, getting rougher lately, used to steer clear of bar fights, but now he's picking them, like he's mad at the world for losing her. That's part of why she don't want me in her town, says he might come looking for a scrap. About that show, she'd told him I was around before we got there. She said we shouldn't make out so he wouldn't feel like we were rubbing it in. It was a long 1 to 10 hours, tons of bands. We kept it low-key at first, then started holding hands, and by the end, we were sneaking some light kisses. One of his friends spotted us and told him, and after that, he kept swinging by our spot every 10 minutes, but we didn't smooch right in his face. I got to thinking how lousy that must feel for him, so I wasn't about to gloat or nothing. She don't live with him no more, stays with her mom and daughter now, she says, but I can't check that myself cause I ain't allowed over there. Right now, I'm torn. We have a real good time together, no lie, but I'm wondering if I ought to have some pride and walk away. That's probably the smart move, but man, I'm stuck on feelings I ain't felt in 34 years. I'm gonna ask her for a timeline, and if she can't even give me that, it'll show she don't see us lasting. Here's the update. I had to talk to her, and since we're a ways apart, it was over WhatsApp. I'd rather do it face to face, but waiting till Saturday wasn't gonna cut it, I needed this off my chest now. On the divorce, she says they're done, and a piece of paper won't change that, but she won't spill much on why she ain't started the legal stuff. She mentioned him working off the books, so splitting money's tricky cause on paper he's got nothing. As for keeping me under wraps, she stuck to her story, it's for her daughter's sake, so I can't be seen in her town or known by her folks or friends. She said she can't tell me when that might change and gets it if that's a deal breaker. So, I had to end it. She said sorry for being a mess and hopes we can be pals someday. I don't know if I'm relieved or down, I needed that weight gone, and I couldn't keep going with all these rules, but part of me feels like I let go of a great gal, maybe the one. You're just hearing my side, so you might think she's awful, but she ain't unless she's fooling me good. 2 months back, when we hashed this out in person, she had reasons for everything, and looking in her eyes, I believed her. She's a good woman and a solid mom, but what she's offering ain't enough for me right now, and that stinks. Well, life keeps rolling. Thanks to everybody who chimed in before.